In today's video, we're talking React hooks. So this video is going to be an introduction to React hooks. And if you don't have any experience with React more generally, don't worry. It should be quite beginner friendly, and we'll go over what React does in general. So looking here on the React docs page, hooks are a new addition to React 16.8. They let you use state and other React features without writing a class. So basically in the past with React, we've had to use class components in order to use state, but now with 16.8 and hooks, we're able to write functional components and use state. So that's kind of the big change. And it really clears up a lot of code, it simplifies things, and you're just writing a lot less code using hooks. So in this video, we're going to be going over UseState, which is the state management within a component. For React hooks, UseEffect, which is kind of the replacement for your lifecycle methods in the past. So component did update, component will mount, those sorts of things. And then UseContext, which is hooks way of managing context within React. And if you don't know any of what I just said, don't worry. It's not super complex, and we'll go over all of it if you're just a beginner and just getting into React. So that'll be the first part of the video. And then the second part of the video, we'll build out an app and kind of put these hooks to use. Okay, so I have my terminal open here on the right. And the first thing I'm going to do is cd into my desktop. And then I'm going to run create React app. Now you can run npx create React app, or if you have it installed globally, you can run npm create React app, and then we will call this hooks. So we're going to run that. We're going to let that run. And then once that file's done running, we can. Okay, so now that that's done, we can cd into hooks. And then I'm going to open it up in VS Code with code dot. If you're using Atom or Sublime or whatever, feel free to open it up in that. Now let me make this a little bigger here. Fill up the screen here and here. Okay, so now this is what we're starting with. And most of our work, basically everything's going to be in our src file here, folder here. And most of what we're going to start with is going to be in our app.js. But first we want to do a little bit of cleanup because we just want to start with a blank slate here. But first I'm going to open up my integrated terminal here, and I'm going to run npm start. Okay, it looks like my connection's a bit slow here, so I'm going to go back into my terminal. So we're going to get rid of a few things. So first of all, we don't need this logo file, so we're going to delete that. That's fine. We're going to then go into our app.js. We're going to remove the logo from there, and we're going to remove, I think we're just going to remove, let's just remove all of this here. We don't even need that here. And we'll just write test here. That's not it. Save that. Now if we go over to our file here, we have a blank thing with test. So that's basically all we need. All right, so let's get into UseState, which is our first hook. But before we do that, just one other thing. We have app.test here. We want to get rid of that too. It won't really cause too many errors, but it'll just cause a couple of annoying warnings, and we don't need that. So we have our app.js right here. It's pretty empty. And our first hook we're going to use is UseState. So in order to start that, we got to bring it in. So we go curly brackets, UseState, and now we have that available to us. So we go below our app function, give us a little bit of room here. And the first thing we want to do is come in and we go const and we destructure, and we're going to go name, and we're going to go set name. And name is going to be the initial state we have, and then set name is going to be similar to this.setState in previous versions of React. So that's going to allow us to change our state and set it to something different. And then to use it, we go UseState, and then this is where we set our initial state. And for right now, we're just going to go Richard Feynman. So that's going to be our name. And then if we come down here, we actually have access to that in a very simple way. We can just call name there in curly brackets. And if we save that, we're going to come over and we can take a look at it right here. And we can see up top, we have access to our That's going to be our state. Our initial state is going to be Richard Feynman showing there. So one thing I want to do also is, for styling purposes, I'm just going to add a class name here. And class name is just Java React's version of class, in case you're new completely to React, and we're just going to call it name. And we can save that. And then over in app.css, I've just added a couple styles here. So text align center and margin top 50 pixels, just to make it a little bit easier for us to see. And then we can see that's just going to be in the middle there. All right, so that's basically how we use and set our initial state. But what if we want to do something at all a little different or challenging? So let's give ourselves a little more room here and kind of clean this up here. So we'll go down here, we'll go this on a new line, and we'll put that in brackets here, come below there and have brackets. Also, if you're using if you're not using Prettier, I suggest it highly, because it'll just auto format on a save here. So what do we want within here? The first thing we're going to have is we'll go paragraph tags, and we'll just put this in here for now. And we'll just go before this, my name is. And then below that, we'll go and do another div. And in that, we're going to have an input. That's not it. We're going to have an input, rather. And then below that, we're going to have a button. And in that button, we'll just say submit, and that's going to submit our values. And then finally, below that, we'll do another paragraph tag, and we're going to say, hey there, and we will go name. Now, none of this is going to make much sense right now, but what's going on here? Oh, oops, this shouldn't be, that obviously is, yeah. Okay, save that. Yeah, again, Prettier is going to reformat that for us. Now, what we want to do is come back up top here, and we're actually going to get rid of the initial state and go get a blank state there. And then we're going to add another UseState call. Const, again, destructuring. Now, as you can see, you can add many of these. You can add as many as you want. We're going to go value and set value. Again, UseState, and again, we're going to set it to an empty string. So again, value is going to be our initial state. Set value, that's kind of the general terminology we use, but it could be anything. You don't have to call it set value, but it just makes it easier, and that's also kind of how you'll see it most often. Okay, so now we save that. Nothing's gonna really happen. We go back here. We have our input box, and the goal is we want to be able to type into here, and then that should come up here as we type. And then we want to be able to hit submit and say, hey there, whatever the name is. So let's go back, and we have to add a couple things to our, I guess it's not really a form, but our input here. So in our input box, we want to add a value, and that's going to be equal to value. And we want, as you can see, the value here is going to be equal to our state here for value. Okay, and then we're going to have an on change, and that's going to be equal to a handle change function, which we're going to write in a second. And then below that on the button, we also need an on click, and that's going to be equal to an update value function, which we also have to write. So now that we have this, this is going to be value, not name. We had that before. So this is going to be the value we type in right away when our input, and we'll see that as we type. And then below, once we hit submit, the name that we typed in should come up as name, which we're setting to value. Okay, so now below here, we have to add a couple of these functions that we created. So we created this on change, this handle change. So we'll start with that. So we'll go const handle change, and we're going to do an arrow function. So that's going to be e arrow curly brackets, and we're going to go set value, and we're going to set that value equal to e.target.value. So set value is how we're going to call it. It's like, remember, this is like this dot set state in older versions of React. So we're going to set value equal to e.target.value, which is what we're typing in here. So that's why we wrote value here. So that's going to be equal to that. And then below, we want to do our submit one, which is const update value. And again, we're going to do the same thing, arrow function. And then here we go. So now we're going to look at UseEffect. And for this, we're going to start by going to src. We're going to create a new file, and we're going to call this posts.js. For this, we're just going to go to an API. We're going to retrieve a lot of posts and just dump them on the screen. So to start off, I think we'll just get everything from our app component, and then we're just going to dump it into posts here. And we'll rename this to posts, and do the same on the export down here at the bottom, posts. And if we save that, we got to bring it in also here. Import posts from /posts, and then we'll just put it in the bottom in the div here, and we'll just go posts. And then if we save that and we switch over to our file here, we have the just replicated right below. Okay, so that's looking okay. Now basically we're going to get rid of everything here except for the main div. And we can also get rid of this here. And we can get rid of these here. And we want to keep the UseState. And then also we want to bring in the UseEffect, because that's what we're going to be working with here. So with UseEffect, we're also going to be using state. So we're going to start here again, like we did last time, destructuring the array. And this time it's going to be called posts and set posts. Okay, and then we're going to go equals UseState, and we're going to set that to an empty array. Now we're going to create a function here, and it's going to be called fetch posts, and it's going to go to an API called JSON placeholder, and then we're going to use that fetch posts function in the UseEffect. So let's start with just seeing that we can fetch the data. So const fetch posts, we'll call it, and it's going to be an async function. Okay, and it'll be an arrow function. We'll have some curly brackets, and we'll go const. So we'll set the response here equal to await. And actually, I was going to use fetch. Let's use Axios too. So I already have Axios installed here, but you should go down to your command line. If you're in terminal, you can create a new terminal here, create a new window, and you can go npm install -- save Axios like that. Now I already have it run, but you can install Axios if you want, or you can just use fetch too if you're familiar with that. So once that's installed, we'll go axios.get, and then I have this URL here that I'll just copy, and we'll paste that in there. So this just gets, it's a ton of posts, fake posts from this API here, and it'll bring in Axios here for us automatically. And if yours doesn't do that, you bring in Axios at the top there. And then what we want to do below here is we're going to set the posts. We'll give ourselves a little room, set posts, and this is going to be where we're going to set our state again, same as before, and we're going to call res.data. Okay, and then we can save. That'll structure that a little bit better. And then now we can get onto our effect where we'll be using our fetch posts. Actually, my prettier gets rid of the UseEffect, so we'll bring that back. Anyway, so here we'll be using UseEffect. So we'll go UseEffect. Okay, and we'll do an arrow function here and brackets, and we'll just call our function in effect, which is fetch posts. Okay, and we'll pass in the post, which is up here, posts. Okay, there we go. So we'll pass in the post, which is what we fetch from here, and set into state. So once that is done, we have one more thing we're going to do. So there's a second argument that UseEffect takes, and that is when to run it. So if you just want to run it once on load, oops, that's in here, you can just set an empty array there. Now if you wanted to run it, say you had some effect there, or you had some state and you wanted to run it every time that re-rendered rather. So you could just run it on posts or any other state anytime you wanted to re-render that there. Okay, so now we have that. So now we're going to come down here and we're going to map over our posts and kind of print them out. So post.map, and we're going to go post, arrow function, and we're going to have a UL. We're going to have li, and we'll do a p tag here, and then we'll go post.title. All right. And once that's done, now, all right, so now we're going to look at our final hook here, which is UseContext. So in order to start this off, we're going to have to first create some context. And for those who don't know, context is React's kind of global state management. So in your individual components, you can use the UseState hook, but if we want some more global context, so we don't have to pass state down through props and do what's known as prop drilling, then we can use context for some global state management. So in order to do that, we're going to first have to create some context. So we're going to bring that in to we're in our app.js. We're going to bring that in. And then below here, we're going to go export const post context, because that's what we're going to be calling it, because it's going to be some context for our post. A little redundant. Create context. So this is where we create our context, and we call that here. So that's great. And then we're going to go down here, and here we're going to wrap our entire application in this post context. So we're going to go post context. And then in here, we also have to go .provider, capital P. And once that's done, we want to bring this down. So we're going to wrap the entire app in our post context.provider, and that allows us context throughout our entire application. All right, so that's good. And then we're going to come back up here, and within this, we're going to add a value. And we're going to go equals, and we're going to say show post. And this is going to be a Boolean of if we want to show the post or not. So we'll start off with true. And now this show post state is available throughout our entire application, wherever we want to bring it in. So let's move over here to our posts. Okay. And we can go here, bring it in. Use context. All right, so that's good. And then we also want to bring in our post context that we created in the app file. So that's from ./app. All right, that's great. And then we have our one state call here, and we're going to create a new one and the exact same thing. So we're going to say this is post visible, and we're going to use context here, and we're going to pass in post context, and that's what we brought in here, post context, and that's what we created up here, post context. Okay, so back here, create that, and then now this application through this post visible, well, actually, you can say that's posts visible, makes more sense. Post visible, we have access to that. So now, what can we do with that? So we can go here, and we can wrap post visible dot and show post, and then we can say and we can wrap the entire thing here in that. And if we save that, we can see the post should still show, because right now we have it as true. So if you see here, we have show post is equal to true. Now we're going to go ahead and create a little to-do app because there aren't enough of those in this world. And let's go over to our src, and we'll create a new file, and we'll go to do.js. Okay, and we're going to do everything in this one file, but we'll have 3 separate components. just because it's not super complicated, and that'll make it a slight bit simpler. So we're just going to write everything out from scratch. So let's import React, and we're going to be using UseState, and that's from React. Okay, and then our function, well, we're going to have 3 different ones, but we're going to start off just with our function, and that's going to be called ToDo. Okay, and that, all we're going to want to return, bring that down a little bit, and to start with, we're just going to return a div, and maybe we'll just write test to start. So we'll save that. Oh, and then we can't forget to export it. So we're going to go export default ToDo. Okay, so this is the first part of our structure, and then we're going to bring that back into app, and we'll see, just make sure it works. So we're import called ToDo from /ToDo, and then below we'll bring it in just under posts ToDo. Okay, save that. We'll go over, check it out, and we see test right here. So that's working. Now, get into the kind of meat of this. So inside here, we'll create a little room here, and we'll get some curly brackets going here, and we'll just get rid of this for now. So what we're going to have inside here, first of all, we're going to need to add both our components. So we're going to have a to-dos list, and we're going to have one component, we're going to map over it and create a list of all our to-dos, and then we're also going to have a to-do form. So let's start, actually let's get that div back, and we'll start with just putting in our to-dos component that we're going to create later. To-dos. Okay, and then below that, we'll create another one, and we'll just call it to-do form. Okay, so now we're going to have to go ahead and create both of those. So let's go back up, and we'll start with creating our component for our to-do form. So again, we called it to-do form, and of course we have to call function. It's the same thing. Okay, and then in this we're going to have some state. So we're going to bring it in, and we're going to call it, let's call it value, and set value again, and then that is equal to UseState. Okay, and we're just going to have our initial state just be an empty string, and then go down here, and we're going to have to add a handle submit on a form we're going to create. So let's go ahead and we will create that in our to-do form below. So we're going to return, and we're going to have a form, and that's going to have a submit on it. So on submit, not non-scroll, on submit, and that's going to be equal to handle submit. Okay, and then within that form, we're going to have a couple things, and actually just one. It's going to be an input, and it's going to have a type of text. Give us a little room here. A type of text, and we're going to have a value, which is equal to value. Okay, and then we're going to have an onChange handler. So onChange, and that's going to be equal to, we're going to actually do this in line. Before we had a separate like handle change, and now we're just going to do it right here in line. So again, remember we had that E, and we're going to go set value, which is here where we're setting our state, and that's going to be equal to E dot target dot value, and that's exactly like we did in the I think we did that in app. Anyways, one of them either way. Let's go ahead and save that and reformat for us. Right now we don't have any to-dos defined, but that's okay. So let's add the handle submit form, or function rather. So we'll go below here, and we're going to say const handle submit, and that's going to equal E, do an arrow function, and again, same as before, prevent default, and we don't want that. There we go. And then we're going to say if, we're going to do an if statement in here. There's no value, so if there's nothing yet, we're going to return, and otherwise we're going to go add ToDo, and we're going to pass in, there, add ToDo, we're going to pass in the value. And then after that value is added, we're going to set the value back to just an empty string. So that'll clear our input after we submit it. So we're going to have our form. So similar to, oh, it's not going to let us do that. We're going to have our form, and then once we type in and press enter, submit the form, it's going to set our value back to nothing. Okay, so that's looking great. We have our function ToDo, we got that. And then we're also, now we're going to need a list of ToDos, which is our ToDo component. So let's go ahead and we can add that. We'll just add it above here. So we go function again, ToDos. Okay, and we're actually going to destructure some stuff in here that we're going to pass in. So we're going to go ToDo. Okay, we're going to go index. So we're going to need the index. When we remove the ToDos, we're going to need to know what index of the array we're going to be removing. And then we're going to have remove to. So now we have our ToDos, which is going to be our list of ToDos. That component's done. And then our ToDo form, which is here. And that is complete. So now we have to go back into our main function ToDo, where we're bringing these in. And we have to add a couple things here. So let's go above here. And we're going to need some state here. So const ToDos and set ToDos. Okay, and that equals UseState, and we're going to pass in just an empty array. So that's where we're going to be starting with, is this empty array here. And we're going to go below that, and this is where we're going to do our add ToDo and our delete ToDo. So we'll go const add ToDo, and that's going to equal the text that we're passing in is going to be the argument we're passing in. And then we will create our function, and we'll go const new ToDos. Okay, and that's going to be equal to an array. And right here, we're going to spread in all our current ToDos. So this is an EX6. It's going to spread into the array all our current ToDos that we have. So all these that we've set in state. And then our second argument, we're just going to have the text rather. So what we're passing in here. And that's going to be what we're typing in when we add the ToDo. Okay, so that's great. And then we're going to call set ToDos. And we're just going to pass in new ToDos, which we just created here. Okay, so that's all we need to do for that. Give ourselves a little room here. And then we're going to have to be able to remove ToDos. So we're going to go const remove ToDos, or ToDo rather, we don't want to remove all of them. And that's going to equal, and here we have to pass in the index. So this is what we've passed in, where was that? Pass that in up here in our list of ToDos. So remove ToDo, when we call this, we're passing in the index. And that's what we're going to be passing in to the arguments here. So we call, we're going to call that there. So we call index, and we'll go ahead and do another arrow function, and const, we'll go new ToDos again. Just like before, this is the same thing. And just like before, we're going to spread in the current ToDos. For missing a dot there. The current ToDos, and then below. Now this is where we're going to remove the ToDo that we're passing in, the index of the ToDo. So we're going to go new ToDos. Spell that right. ToDos, which is right here. Dot splice, which will remove it, and we have to pass in the index. So this is the index that we want to remove, and then you have to tell it how many elements. So we just want to remove the first element from that index. All right, and then below that, we're going to set ToDos, and we're going to set that to new ToDos. All right, so I think that's it for that, unless I've misspelled something. So now in our return, we're going to do a couple things here. So first of all, we want to map over all the ToDos. So we're going to go todos.map. We're going to pass in to-do, comma, and the index of the to-do. And then we're going to create an arrow function here. And in here, this is where we're going to have our to-do. So bring that in there. And then we're going to pass in a few things into this component here. So we're going to have a key, otherwise React, unique key is one thing React needs. Anytime you map over something, we're going to go index is equal to index. It's going to be the index we're passing in. The to-do is equal to to-do. So that's that. And then also remove to-do. Move to-do. Okay, so we have a couple errors here. Let's check this out. So first, actually, this actually isn't an error, but we're just going to go set to-dos just for stylistic reasons. And set to-dos here. So that we just want that capitalized. It doesn't affect anything, but just it was bugging me. And then add to-do is not defined. Okay, so we haven't add to-do here. Oh, we got to pass it in to the to-do form. Okay, that's what we missed here. So we're going to go add to-do. Now we should have access to that, obviously. So you got to pass that in as props there. So now that that's all done, let's go and take a look here and see. This is our form here. And we can add something, hopefully, and go to gem. And boom, go to gem works. Now if we press delete, hopefully that gets rid of it. So that works great. We can try it again. Add submit. Another one more. Okay, and then we can delete them. All right, so going back, that looks like we're about done. Obviously it looks terrible and functionality is quite limited, but I think it's a good introduction to hooks and how everything works there. So I'm going to leave all this code as is, so you can see the previous stuff, and I'll put it up on GitHub, and the link will be in the description. And hopefully this was helpful and a good introduction to React hooks. If you want to see more of these videos, you can comment in the description, let me know what else you'd like to see, and if you want to see more, give this a thumbs up and maybe subscribe if you're interested. So thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.